Good afternoon again, and welcome to this week's Mayor's Message, where no expense has been spared in the production of this video and no responsibility taken for the quality of the end product. But we'll give it a shot and see how we go. Here we are Tuesday afternoon after what seems to be a pretty tough start to the week in terms of the amount of work and issues that council is facing, but we're working our way through that. But likewise, it's very much a time to reflect on the wonderful weather we're having and what a magnificent place in which we get to live. It's easy to sit back and observe what's happening on the mainland in terms of the COVID-19 virus infestations, but I think that would be a mistake to just reflect and think that those issues are only associated with the outbreak on the mainland, when in fact that very same thing can happen here in Tasmania if we aren't remaining vigilant and taking the precautions that we're encouraged to take about social distancing, about personal sanitation, and ensuring that we do everything we can to prevent what's happening in Victoria happening here in Tasmania. We are able to get out and enjoy the sunshine, this fantastic winter weather, but again there is that cautionary word to please continue to follow the government's advice, the advice of the health officials, and do what we can to prevent any potential outbreak here in Tassie. Just on COVID-19, it's been just terrific to see the amount of people who are out and about exercising. I think more so than at any other time in my experience as mayor. I see people cycling and walking, taking their dogs out, walking through the tracks to Ratton, for example, and running, which is a bit over exuberant, I would have thought, but that's what people choose to do. It's great to see. I'm really hopeful though that people will continue to exercise to the extent they are currently into the future. We have great recreational spaces. We're working to provide even better recreational opportunities, but would like to think that the new standard for us will be that we all exercise more than we previously have, and it'd be wonderful if that's the case. In terms of opportunities, we're very much engaged in working with the Kentish Council on the Wild Mersey mountain bike trails and extension up into Sheffield, which is currently underway. We've certainly got work happening up at the playground up off Stanley Street, and the associated street works and dog exercise area there. So it's great to see that happening, and that will provide opportunities for particularly those people with dogs and younger children who wish to access those council facilities. And much more is happening and planned in our area, and I've spoken about some of those things previously. I would like to though touch on an issue that really is paramount to most people in our community, that is the Mersey Community Hospital, and particularly the emergency department and the restricted hours which currently remain at opening from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. And of course that causes concern for many people, but it's just unfortunate that people, in particular the press and to some degree politicians, want to raise that issue and really push their own barrows from my perspective. What we do need to make sure happens is that the reopening of 24-hour emergency services for the hospital and our community takes place when it's safe to do so. It's all very well to complain and to suggest that things should be happening faster than what they currently do, but what we need is both sides of politics and those members of the public who want to contribute to put their ideas and other options forward that we might be able to consider, other than to return to that reliance on locums. Because at the moment, clearly we can't bring locums into Tasmania and take that risk. We can't afford to have a reliance on them in the longer term, and it's a much better outcome for all of us if the ED can open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with specialists and clinicians who are committed to staying here in Tasmania, who can provide a continuity of care to their patients and who can contribute outside of work hours to our local communities. That'll be the ultimate. So let's work together, find ways in which we can make that happen, and not complain or suggest that the government's not working hard to find a way to provide that service to us 24 hours a day. Likewise, I'd like to mention the Strathdevon hydrotherapy pool and what we're trying to do there. And I may have mentioned that before, but again, we're working with the owners of that facility, Strathdevon, and the government and our local council staff to try and find a way in which we can open that facility up to the public on a much wider scale than was previously available. Continuing to work through that, do our due diligence and see what's possible, and we'll update you when that's develops further. In other news, I guess I'd like to touch on the work being done by council in planning. And it's not something most people are interested in or take too much notice in unless it directly impacts them when a development application comes to council and is in their local neighbourhood or in their backyard, so to speak. We've had a couple of contentious ones and ones that have concerned residents, and quite understandably. But councillors have to consider the application along planning lines. We can't just consider what our own personal views are, what the feelings of the community are. We have to base our decisions in line with the guidelines in our planning scheme. It's currently being renewed, I should say reviewed, and ultimately we will have a statewide planning scheme. Whether that brings better outcomes and better options, I'm not sure, and in fact I'm a little bit concerned about that. But we'll see what evolves in that space. But planning is a very difficult task. Acting as a planning authority, as councillors do, is an arduous task. A lot of reading, a lot of research, absolute compliance with the planning guidelines is necessary. So pretty easy to sit back and not understand or be critical of the process, but it is a very difficult space in which to work. And I would ask that those people involved in representations do really consider their concerns against the planning scheme, refer to the planning scheme and raise those concerns in relation to the DAs along planning guidelines wherever possible. Really been grateful that we've had really positive meetings with representatives of the community around particular planning applications. Always constructive, always encourage people to raise their concerns, but be cognisant of the issues that councillors face when dealing with planning matters. Probably finish on that note. Really looking forward to getting out tonight and enjoying the sunshine to the extent that we can. It's so late in the day. I'm looking forward to a very positive week where kids and families can be out enjoying the sunshine during the school holidays, take advantage of the restrictions being lifted to some extent and make the most of the opportunity before heading back to school in a week or so's time. Please take care, follow the guidelines and do all we can to keep Tasmania safe and Latrobe safe. Thank you and appreciate your time.